Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Haven of Horror. I lost my trail of thought there. As we continue through our Valentine's Day reviews, any horror film that has some kind of connection to either love or, in this case, Valentine's Day. The remake of My Bloody Valentine. Unfortunately, the original was not streaming, so we decided to do this one, um, which is a film I like, but I think it's just despite itself.
That's fair.
So let me ask you this, Doolittle, because you mentioned that you didn't like this one quite as much. Would you believe that the screenplay was written by one of the guy or co-written by one of the guys that did Jason X?
Uh, yes. I would absolutely believe you. That's hilarious. I'm so happy you told me that because that brings a certain amount of clarity to my viewing experience.
Well, what's
Uh,
even more insane is he also did that movie Drive Angry, which everybody loves.
yeah, I watched Drive Angry like a while ago, and I had a fun time with it. It was like kind of, you know, it's a very exploitive movie. I don't know if I would like it as much anymore. I'd have to go back to it. Just because I've grown so much with my like personal tastes. But Nicolas Cage is pretty sweet in that movie, from what I can remember. Um, and so I had a fun time watching that movie. I can see elements of that in this. I can definitely say that because this movie can go pretty crazy sometimes.
So, just to also note before we get into the actual meat of this review, so the guy's name is Todd Farmer, and he is the truck driver in this movie that gets killed for being a piece of shit.
Mhm.
So, I guess I want to start here with Jensen Ackles because he's kind of the biggest name that this movie has, and he is hands down the best part of this movie, and I think
I
why I
agree.
end up on this side of liking it. But I've always had this weird thing with him where, because he is mostly a TV actor. He's most famously known for Supernatural. He was in a season of Smallville. He's kind of too good for TV, but I don't know if he's mega movie star good.
I was thinking about that while watching this movie. Um, I don't know. I think he could have been like a movie person. I definitely think that it's cool that he has done a lot of TV stuff. It's cool that he's been able to kind of own those roles. And there are also like actors where like, you know, just being a TV actor, like you kind of need to be like a TV actor to be available for TV shows. Because if you're in movies, then you're just not available for, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So it's one of those things where it's like the scheduling. So it's, it's worked out for his career, which is cool. And he's going to be in The Boys in the next season, which is cool. And okay, I thought about this. Do you think he could have been Batman in live action? Because I know that he voices Batman in the Long Halloween movie, and I could see elements of Batman in his performance in this film, which is interesting.
maybe 20 years ago.
Okay, that's fair.
But I think because he's a strange case. We're getting a little off topic here. Sorry, folks, but
Hmm.
he's a
No, no
strange
worries.
case where he could also have been Jason Todd, and I wouldn't have batted an eye.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of relevant that we're talking about like him as an actor, like in the industry, like yeah, I think he could have done a lot more with like movies, but I think that his career has paid off.
Mhm.
Like he's done some pretty satisfactory work overall to me. Like I think he's done some cool stuff.
Yeah, and there is a couple other actors in this that have gone on to do stuff, like the sheriff's mistress, which we'll get into here in a minute. She is currently on that show, The Blacklist,
Hmm.
and she's like the lead in that, and she's pretty good in that. She just doesn't get anything to work with here. Um,
Well, and she's part of probably the one of the most awkward subplots of the movie, I think overall, which doesn't help that at all. Um, Also, Jamie King is in this movie, which is cool because she's in Sin City. Like she's pretty cool.
yeah. So let's just start at the beginning then, because a lot of the first, I don't know, 10-20 minutes is mostly setup
Hmm.
for the main film. And I haven't went back and watched the original. I know, but I do know this, the twist in this movie is pulled from the original, but they changed the motivation and the reason why
Oh,
to a
okay.
certain degree. So the movie starts and it shows that these miners have been basically trapped in a cave in, right? And it's
Yeah.
revealed that one of them, uh, Harry Warden, has gone crazy, went crazy, and killed the others. To
Yes.
They say it's to suppress, or like to get all the oxygen for himself, but it also just kind of seems like he's a crazy person.
Hmm.
So if he only killed those miners to preserve his oxygen, why does he kill later and then cut out people's hearts?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. I had a question about the heart thing. I did not understand the motivations behind that. I had a hard time grappling with the psychology, to be honest, of that stuff. I didn't really know, get a good handle on that, which is kind of a problem.
It
But the
felt
heart thing, I definitely was like lost. I didn't understand that at all.
so. I guess I also want to throw out the disclaimer. I am perfectly aware that this is just a shitty reboot of an '80s slasher film, and I don't need it to be wise and deep. It's just we have to we have to question motivations in the film. That's what we're here
Yeah,
for. It felt like that was only there because that's what he did in the original. At least I assume that's what he did in the original, which is what ties it into the Valentine's Day motif.
I see. Okay,
Um,
okay. I mean, that would make sense. I guess they're just trying to keep that iconography. I mean, I could be totally just like out of line because I haven't seen the original.
yeah,
But I guess, yeah,
if we're wrong, let us know. We're very curious.
yeah,
We do want to do the original. It's just unfortunately not streaming anywhere currently.
yeah.
So we're going off this blind. So we get
Hmm.
that, and then we get the attack on the kid quote kids. Which, you know what, I have to say, I do kind of appreciate that they still casted 30-something-year-olds as teenagers. It's not a shitty slasher movie until there's 30-year-old teenager.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Well, when I initially got to that part, I was like, hold on a second, this is a little weird. But they flash forwarded, and like there's a time skip,
Yeah,
kind of getting ahead of ourselves. But they at least justify the casting a little bit with that, like a little bit.
yeah. So we get the attack, and then we flash forward. Jensen Ackles' character has left. He has come back to sell the mine. So let me ask you this: Was
Yeah.
because I noticed this, and I've seen this movie quite a bit. I owned this on DVD like when it first came out, and I
Oh
watched it quite
wow.
a bit. Because like this is my kind of movie. It's really stupid. It's really sleazy, and it's got some great kills. Like
Hmm.
that's my perfect horror film.
I could
Um,
agree with you on that for sure. The latter thing you
yeah.
said.
Did you see the twist coming?
No,
Really?
I actually didn't. Well, because I felt like it would be such an obvious thing that I didn't think that they would do it. Like I just thought that was just like a, I don't know.
Like a
I just
fake
thought it was
out?
like a red herring. Yeah. But then once it got there, I was like, oh well, of course, like duh. Um, you know, uh, yeah, very definitely felt very dumb with that twist. But it is what it is. Did you
Yeah.
see it coming when you first watched it when you were younger?
No, I did not. I did not. I
Okay.
remember, and that was part of what I loved about it, because even if it's stupid, I love twists like that.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because they have this epic feeling to them, even if after you think about it, it's really stupid.
Mhm.
Although I like it in this, because if there's anything that this movie is about thematically, it is about past trauma,
Sure.
and not being able to quite overcome that. And I think part of what makes that work is, like we mentioned, Jensen Ackles is really good in this movie.
Oh, yeah, well, when we get to the twist, he sells it really hard.
Yeah,
I think he does a really good job with that.
yeah, because it's like it has that scene where the sheriff's like, um, you know, Harry, is that you or whatever, and he just like kind of looks at him menacing. He's like, I'm right here, and it's like,
Mhm.
damn, you you gave it your all in this like B movie.
Yeah.
What's really funny is that this movie came out the same year as the Friday remake, which has the other main cast member of Supernatural, Jared Padalecki.
Yeah, he's pretty good in that movie.
He's also the best human character in that movie.
That's true.
um, so the reason I asked about the twist, because watching it this time for the first time in a while, but remembering the twist, the thing that gave it away for me, or that I thought would give it away, is the scene where when he first goes out down in the mine and Harry locks quote Harry locks him in that cage. And there's that scene where everything Harry does is just a mimic of what Jensen Ackles' character does. And I was like, are they trying to foreshadow the twist? So I wasn't
Yeah.
sure with you having coming into this from a fresh perspective if you if you if that gave it away for you.
Well, I can definitely say that, like, I was not thinking about that when I was watching that scene. I kinda came into this one very, I was not informed really, when I first came into this film, really. I knew about, like, the iconography, you know? Like, I knew about the heart in the movie, like, the heart kind of, like, thing with the killer, and I knew about the look of the killer, which, by the way, I love the design of the killer. I think he looks really cool. I just think, like, gas masks in general, like, the kinda goggle look on characters looks really cool. That's why I like DC Sandman, in the Golden Age Sandman. Like, there's just a really cool look, to the design. Um, and so I knew that, and I knew that, and I knew his heart thing. I did not know about the twist though, and I didn't even think to look for any signs of that because I was just kind of like, all right, like I'll enjoy the ride. There's like a mystery element to this, you know?
Mhm. So I agree with you with the design, and
Yeah.
that is the other thing I want to praise this movie for is it understands that Harry Warden has the same thing that like say Jason or Michael does. It's a very simple costume and it's effective. If
Yeah, I
I
agree.
saw a motherfucker in a mine suit with a pickaxe running at me, I'm gonna be scared shitless.
Yeah,
Like,
no, he looks he looks really freaky, you know?
yeah, and I do wonder. I assume it's a stunt guy in the suit because, but they put a lot of thought into like his movements and the way exactly when to trigger like that breathing sound with the mask. Um,
Hmm.
everything with Harry Warden seems really thought out. It's just everything else around the movie. It feels like at a certain point they just ran out of time or didn't know what to do. I guess the most
Or
yeah.
oh, I was gonna say, or they were really fixated on the 3D element of the movie. I think that could have been part of it as well.
So I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to mention. So this movie came out in 2009, which was
Yeah.
what 10, 12 years ago, something like that.
Hmm.
This movie looks like shit at certain points,
Oh, yeah.
mostly because of the 3D.
I I agree. They take scenes that on paper would look really, really cool, I think, and, like, as set pieces, you know? And they just totally botch it, like, the execution of it because they're so fixated on, uh, like, the gimmick of, like, 3D, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I think the most egregious moments to me, there's a scene with, is her name Irene? I think, she's, like, completely naked or whatever,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah.
like, yeah, and he's trying to get at her, and the axe keeps going into the camera, and it just looks awful because it's repeated, like, over and over and over again. I think it's that scene, but there is a scene like that where he keeps doing it, and it's like, it's not cool anymore, you know?
Mine is the
Um
same scene, but it's when he kills the truck driver. Uh, it like goes. I think it's the truck driver. It's the one where the axe like goes through the eye, and the eye is like supposed to pop at the camera, but it's like
Oh, okay.
terrible CGI, and it's like, oh god.
No, yeah, well, the CGI in this movie is also pretty rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, I do have to give it praise. This movie was made on a $14 million budget, and it made almost 120 million at the box office.
Yeah, I wonder what the factors were considering that this movie is, like, R-rated. Like, I don't know if, like, well, I just don't know how, like, people, like maybe it was the novelty of it, I guess, right? Because 'cause I'm trying to think about how this was successful, because that's pretty, like, impressive, that this was able to be, like, a financial movie, all things considered, given the genre it's in, um, and, like, how, like you know what I mean?
Yeah,
The fact
with
the
this
trailers
being a
are
more obscure slasher, it's not
yeah,
Friday the
that too.
13th, it's not Halloween. If I had to guess, I would say it's right time, right place, because this was right at the tail end of the slasher remake, and all of those movies made money. So I'm guessing, you advertise it. Oh, it's a slasher movie. It's like Friday the 13th or Halloween. It's gonna make money.
Mhm. I guess it was just in that, like, zeitgeist, yeah. It's a good
Yeah.
way of putting it.
So we should probably talk about probably the worst subplot in this movie, which is the sheriff, uh, his wife, Jensen Ackles' character, and the sheriff's mistress.
Mhm.
Because I am convinced this movie forgets that the sheriff is a cheating bastard until the last like 20-30 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, it's really awkward. Um, because I remember while I was watching this movie, eventually I asked, John, like, in the horror Haven of Horror, server, like, "Does this come back, like, at all?" And by the time I asked that, I wanna say, like, 2 minutes later or 3 minutes later or something like that, they do address it again, but it's a little too late. Definitely, like, a pretty sloppily handled, subplot. And also, it doesn't help that the sheriff just kinda comes off as an antagonistic force in the movie, you know, because of his position, as, like, the sheriff in a slasher movie, but also, like, the fact that he is, like, not believing people, you know what I mean? Like, so
Mm-hmm.
that is already kind of against his favor, but he's also, like, cheating on his wife, and I don't know why. He's cheating on his wife too, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I just found the whole thing very kinda muddled overall. What did you think?
So I didn't mind him being like basically an antagonistic force because
No,
in
that's
many
fine.
ways our protagonist is the antagonist.
Mhm.
Um, because obviously the protagonist is supposed to be Jensen Ackles, Tom Hanniger. Where it lost me because I was with it. This is a sheriff who's in a marriage, who's married to someone who obviously settled for him. This obviously was not like, oh, they're so in love marriage. You know, she obviously settled for him because Jensen Ackles' character left town. So it makes sense that, oh, maybe he goes out and looked for someone else that would really want him, even if that makes him kind of a scummy person. What was weird to me, they dropped the bombshell that his mistress is pregnant, and then for the next, I guess the whole second act, if you want, his entire character motivation is that he's jealous of Tom Hanniger and wants to keep him away from his wife that he's cheating on.
Yeah, and oh my god, you brought up that she's pregnant. I totally forgot about that.
because it never
Like,
comes back.
yeah, that's a problem. Like, oh, that's a problem.
It is a problem, and I think the only way to fix it is just cut it. You didn't need that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I forgot it, you know? No, that seems like something that seems like a first draft issue or something, that you would, like, iron out later. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
because it's just like, oh, she's pregnant, and then I think it's the very next scene she's in is when she's brutally murdered. It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, she's, like, given, I think, 3 scenes?
Yeah,
I could be wrong. Like, it's crazy how underdeveloped that is.
but you know why she's there? She is
Well,
the catalyst because that is what uh eventually gets Tom, and he slips up because he reveals that he knew more about Mary's death than he was told.
oh,
That's why that
okay.
character exists, so that the sheriff and his wife will eventually figure out that Tom is the one killing.
Yeah, so I guess there is, like, some connective tissue there. But it's like, I get wow, that's crazy that they did that.
I am with that whole subplot until she disappears from the film, or really, I
Yeah,
guess until the
sure.
pregnancy reveal. Because I think it does add a different layer to a slasher, where instead of like it's not a Friday the 13th where it's just a bunch of dumb teenagers and they're horny. These characters are, even if it's not handled well, these characters are going through something that I think is somewhat relatable. You know, having
Mhm.
a lousy job, your wife doesn't want you. She kind of settled for you. You're having an affair because you feel unwanted at home, or you and your spouse are always fighting. But none of that is relevant to the actual plot of the movie. It's just, well, we got to give these people some kind of character traits.
Yeah, they're not, like, thematically or contextually intertwined with, like, the actual, like, conflict of the movie or anything like that, you know? Maybe maybe thematically, right? Because your point about her settling for him is relevant to the theme of trying to get over something, you know what I mean? And, like, this is just her way of, I guess, coping with the situation, you know? I didn't think about that. I don't know, if that was, like, immediately, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not sure if they did a very good job presenting that, but I do think that your point about that is interesting, and I think, I think that that adds something, but obviously I'm not sure how much of that's really what was immediate to me in my watching of the film, you know?
And I agree with you there, because it circles back to, uh, you know, the we've got this character Tom Hannigan or Hanniger
Mhm,
left because of his trauma, and the sheriff's wife is one of the casualties of that trauma, where the love of her life just left. What does she do? Well, she settles for the next best thing,
mhm,
the local sheriff's.
yeah.
So like that's all potentially interesting, but it's a slasher movie. We gotta have the kills. Forget we said that. Forget the mistress is pregnant. It doesn't matter. It's not important. We're moving on.
Yeah, they're definitely fixated on other stuff, you know?
So let me ask you this, because like I mentioned earlier, this movie is at the very tail end. In fact, it's the year before Nightmare on Elm Street just kills the whole thing.
Yeah.
This is at the very end of the slasher boom reboot craze, and I don't know how many of you those of you have seen, but where does this kind of rank for you amongst the slasher remakes you've seen?
I can definitely say, this is better than Nightmare, and it's worse than Friday the 13th, I think.
I completely
Um,
agree.
yep, because Friday the 13th knows exactly what it is, and it just doesn't care. You know what I mean? Like, it's pretty much just unabashedly, like, here's Friday the 13th, and I don't know, like, it seems like they're having, like, fun with it. You've explained to me, and I haven't seen all the Friday the 13th movies, but you've explained to me that it's kind of like a hodgepodge of, like, different stuff, like, it's kind of an amalgamation of,
The
certain
first four.
aspects of the franchise. Yeah. So that seems really cool. It seems like they have reference to that material, pretty dope. And then this is a little bit more uncertain about certain things. It's got some like issues, but yeah, I think for the most part, like I do think that there's some like interesting stuff here and there. I think Jensen Ackles is pretty sweet in the movie.
Yeah, I wish he
uh,
had done more like this. I would have
sure.
really liked to see his career in a horror slasher landscape.
Yeah, I wonder what that would have been like. Because he already was on Supernatural, you know what I mean? Like, he's dabbled into, like, some, like, kind of horror, supernatural stuff, you know? I feel like that's kind of adjacent to, like, all this stuff, like horror movies and all that jazz. Um, oh, and Nightmare on Elm Street obviously is way worse than this because Nightmare on Elm Street remake is just the worst. Like, having now seen that, like, ugh, it's gross. Yeah.
So, I think the last thing I'm really going to mention about this movie, because we've covered pretty much everything there really is to say about it, there was a sequel pitch to Lionsgate, and this is where I'm going to call Lionsgate fucking hypocrites. So, Lionsgate lost interest in a sequel to this film after mixed reviews from critics. But the sequel would have been more psychological and would have brought back survivors from the remake as well expanded on the backstory. Lionsgate, the people who've put out 9 Saw movies, passed on a sequel to this because of critical reception.
Mm.
What the fuck?
Yeah, well, it's interesting, right? Because I feel like the best part of the movie was kind of Jensen Ackles' performance, and it seems like from where, and even though I was confused about the psychology of his character, I do think that like moving forward, you could have done some cool things with him with all of that, maybe flesh things out in another movie.
Mm-hmm.
So that's unfortunate that that didn't happen because it seems like they were going to take probably the kind of a seed of a really cool psychological slasher movie, which is what I really like that idea, you know. Um, so yeah, that's a bummer, man.
Yeah, because I mean, the ending clearly hints that, oh, we could continue this. They go out of their way to show that he's still alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I so let me ask you this as well because I just thought about this talking about sequel potential. How did you feel
Uh-huh.
about Jensen Ackles' chemistry with what's her name, Jamie King?
I mean, they're the two best actors in the movie, so like I thought they did a pretty good job with each other, bouncing off of each other. You know,
Mhm.
so I thought that was all pretty well handled for the most part.
And did you recognize the deputy?
I don't think I did. No.
That is Darwin from First Class.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
He
a lot
dies
of
in that
little.
movie, unfortunately.
Yeah, he just disappears from this one,
That's true. Well,
unless
he
unless I
appears
missed his death
again.
scene.
Yeah, he appears again later, I think. But he's there for like a little bit of time and then just kind of like vanishes. He like spawns out.
Mhm. So Doolittle, I'm gonna give this a 3 out of 5. It knows what it is, and I admire the goal at doing something a little more complicated than your average slasher, even if it doesn't hit the mark. And
Mhm.
I think at the very least, it's worth watching just for Jensen Ackles.
Sure. And I also think it's like one of those things where it's like it's definitely it is definitely like ambitious on certain levels, but I think that you know, I guess like going into my score, it's probably like a 2 out of 5.
That's completely
I think
fair.
it's yeah. I I don't. I'm just not sure. It's not. I think that there are some really cool kind of ideas and seeds of cool things, but overall, definitely pretty messy. But some good acting though here and there from from Jensen Ackles and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, this was another great review. I feel like we've been on a roll lately.
Yeah.
So next week we'll be back with our final Valentine's Day review, so to speak. We're gonna do It Follows. And then
Yeah.
I'm not sure what we're doing for March, but I think it might be time to show Doolittle some of the Friday the 13th he hasn't seen. We'll see, but we'll see.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I am
Yeah.
totally down for that.
I have a couple ideas I'll pitch you here in a minute, but thank you guys for
Yeah, sure.
watching. Feel free to hit that subscribe button if you liked this, and Doolittle. I'll see you next week with It Follows.
Yeah.
Have a good night, everybody.
Yeah. Good night.